Michael Jordan wanted Adidas. Adidas wanted Michael Jordan, and Nike was the last brand he would have signed with. But Sonny Vaccaro, a Nike talent scout, saw something on the court, a single moment that let him see the future. He was sure Michael Jordan would be the greatest player in history, and they couldn't let him slip away. The problem was that Nike back then was a joke. Maybe today you see it as the biggest brand in the world, with all the celebrities wearing it. But in 1984, any basketball player would have chosen another brand before Nike. This is the story of how the iconic Air Jordans were created and how they almost didn't exist. And also how, even today, Phil Knight, the creator of Nike, and Michael Jordan maintain a silent feud over who really deserves the credit. It's 1984. Wham! Plays on the TVs. The first cell phone hits the market. Adidas is the hip-hop brand. The Celtics win the NBA, and Converse is the basketball shoe. In the middle of all that is Sonny Vaccaro. He watches a high school game, takes notes on the players, talks to them, to the coach. He's Nike's talent scout in the basketball division. Soon after, he travels to Las Vegas, bets on a game as if predicting the future, and wins. At the casino, he bets again, wins again, but decides to go all in on a third bet and loses. The next day, he arrives at Nike's offices in Oregon, meets with Howard White, vice president of sports relations. Howard wants to know when the new players will arrive. Sonny gets frustrated. He doesn't understand why they accept less money to go with Adidas. Because Adidas is trendy, Howard replies. It's what the rappers wear. If you're not wearing Adidas, you're not cool. Sonny asks about Nike. Howard admits the brand is only associated with running. The kids want to be like Isaiah and Magic, NBA stars, and they're with Converse. Sonny asks how he got Moses. Howard replies, it was thanks to his mom. He explains that in many African-American families, it's the mothers who make the decisions. Keep this fact in mind because it'll be important later. Later, Rob Strasser, vice president of marketing, leads a meeting. They only have $250,000 and need to find a player to represent Nike. They review the draft order, dismiss the top picks without thinking, knowing they wouldn't sign with Nike. Rob lays out his strategy. Go for 3 players between pick 5 and 20. Sonny isn't convinced. They're not going to get anywhere like that. He asks, what about Michael Jordan? Rob makes it clear they can't sign Jordan. He's the 3rd pick in the draft. They can't pay him what he wants, and besides, he wouldn't want to go with them. Phil Knight, CEO and founder of Nike, calls Sonny to his office. Do you want to know how the basketball division is going? Sonny tells him the strategy is garbage. They're wasting money on 3 mediocre players. If they want results, they need more budget to sign someone better. Phil gets furious. The basketball department is already a disaster. He's not giving him more money. In fact, if there are no results, he'll shut it down. Sonny gets frustrated. Without budget, he can't deliver what he expects. Before continuing, let's pause, because to understand and appreciate this story, we need to know some details. We have to go back to the 1800s, before sneakers existed, when shoes were extremely uncomfortable. Most had thick leather soles reinforced with nails, tacks, or even wood, so running or playing sports in them was practically impossible. In 1830, commercial rubber arrives. For the first time, they put it on the sole, and sand shoes are born. Canvas on top, rubber on bottom, designed just for the beach. They're considered the first sneakers in history. Over time, they're used in sports like croquet or tennis, and that's where the name tennis comes from. Years later, in English, they start calling them sneakers because sneak means to move stealthily, and these rubber soles didn't make noise when walking. In 1908, Marquis Mills Converse founds the Converse Rubber Shoe Company. At first, he makes shoes with rubber soles, designed exclusively for winter, rain, snow, and slippery floors. But to expand his market, he launches the non-skid, designed for a relatively new sport, basketball. It's a high-top shoe with a reinforced toe, made to provide more support and traction on the court. In 1922, they signed Chuck Taylor, a basketball player, as an ambassador. He suggests improvements to the design, and his name ends up on the label, Chuck Taylor All-Star. From there, it takes off. For years, it's the official NBA footwear, and for decades, it's the favorite on the courts. Meanwhile, in Germany, 2 brothers see an opportunity. Adolf Adi Dassler and Rudolf Dassler found the Dassler Brothers Shoe Factory. It all starts homemade. Adi makes the sports shoes in his mother's kitchen while Rudolf handles sales. In 1936, they convince Jesse Owens to wear them at the Berlin Olympics. Owens wins 4 gold medals, and the world starts talking about the Dasslers. However, after World War II, the brothers fight, and the factory splits. Adi creates Adidas, and Rudolf, Puma. Decades later, these German brands dominate the market, and that's exactly when a young man named Phil Knight starts thinking about how he could dethrone them. But we'll see that story later. That night, Sonny stays alone in the offices, watches tapes of college players, looks for the best, looks for a miracle, but it doesn't appear. Tired, he ends up at a 7-Eleven. He notices the cashier is a basketball fanatic and asks him, "What do you think of Michael Jordan?" He says, If he hadn't made that shot that won them the championship, he wouldn't be so high on the draft list. At home, Sonny keeps watching basketball videos, but something on TV steals his attention. A commercial of Arthur Ashe, a tennis legend, looks at the camera and says, "The racket I won Wimbledon with is the same one you can buy in a store. It's not customized, no tricks. Just as they sell it is exactly what I use." Suddenly, in one of the basketball tapes, the answer Sonny was looking for appears. It's the final, North Carolina versus Georgetown. In the last seconds, Michael Jordan scores the championship shot, but it's not the shot that catches him. Millions have already seen it. What matters is before. The next morning, Sonny runs to Rob. "I have what we need." He shows him the video but doesn't want him to focus on the shot, but on the previous play. The center seems like he's going to pass it to James Worthy, the superstar, but he's covered, and the ball goes to Jordan. Jordan scores. However, if you look closely, this wasn't improvised. That play was designed for Jordan from the start. Why would an expert coach design the decisive play not for the superstar, but for a rookie? He rewinds the clip. Seconds before receiving the pass, Jordan is completely relaxed. He's 18 years old, in the national championship, 3 seconds from the most important shot of his life, and he's calm. "Sonny, Michael Jordan is going to go far." He tells Rob he doesn't want to sign 3 mediocre players. He wants to spend the entire budget on one, Michael Jordan. He wants to create a line of shoes inspired by him, not just for him to wear, but to represent him, to be him. Rob refuses, it's too risky. Besides, Jordan was very clear, he doesn't want to come to Nike. Today it seems logical that Sonny wanted to sign Michael when we look back. It's easy to connect the dots and think the answer was obvious. But at that moment, in the middle of it all, it's not so simple. So, how clear was it that Michael was going to dominate basketball? What signs were there? From a young age, Michael was extremely athletic. In high school, he didn't just play basketball. He also played baseball, which was his favorite at the time, and football. When he reached 10th grade, he wanted to join the varsity basketball team, the school's A-League. There were 15 spots, 14 went to 8th and 12th graders, and the only one left went to his teammate Leroy Smith, who was 6 feet 6 inches, while Michael was barely 5 feet 9 inches. So he had to stay on the junior team. A year later, he came back more prepared and 4 inches taller. This time, he made the A-team. Soon, they started inviting him to camps where college coaches scouted talent, and there Michael was already drawing attention. He was fast, with good instincts and a ton of skill. And that's how the University of North Carolina signed him. Upon arriving, Coach Dean Smith didn't see him as an offensive superstar who would score 30 points per game. Rather, he saw him as a very talented athlete, but with a still raw offensive game. In an interview, Smith said, "Michael wasn't an instant star. He had potential. One area he needed to improve was his outside shot. The problem was his hands were so big that it actually made shooting harder." Smith almost never started a rookie, but he told Michael that if he defended well, he could earn that spot. Jordan took it very seriously, trained like crazy, learned the defensive rules faster than anyone, and ended up starting from the first game. That same year came his moment of fame, the college final against Georgetown. A few seconds left, and Michael made the shot that gave them the championship, and from there, he was on everyone's radar. Still, in the following seasons, his team didn't win the title again. In his second year, he became his university's leading scorer with 20 points per game, almost 50% more than his first year. But that didn't mean he was the best in the country. There were other players with more impressive stats like Akeem Olajuwon, Sam Bowie, or Patrick Ewing. So although Jordan was very good, he wasn't indisputably the best. Around him were many high-level players. When the draft came, he was picked number 3. And yes, that's high, but a high pick is no guarantee. There are tons of cases of players who promised a lot and didn't come close to expectations. In 2007, for example, number 1 was Greg Oden, picked before Kevin Durant. He was supposed to be a superstar, but injuries stopped him, and he retired at 28. In 2013, number 1 was Anthony Bennett. He barely lasted 4 seasons in the league and averaged 4.4 points per game. And in 2003, the second pick Darko Milicic, picked before Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade, but never met expectations. Plus, when Michael was picked by the Chicago Bulls, general manager Rod Thorne commented, "I wish he was 7 feet, but he's not. Jordan's not going to turn this franchise around. There just wasn't a center available. What could we do?" With all this, it's clear Michael looked like a good player, but no one imagined he'd be that good. Most saw him with potential, but not as someone who would change the history of the sport. Given this, it seems Sonny Vaccaro did see something that many, even the Bulls' general manager, didn't catch. Howard warned Sonny that Michael is an Adidas guy. His clothes, his sneakers, everything he wears is Adidas. Sonny contacts David Falk, Jordan's agent. Falk assures him Michael won't meet with them. Top players don't wear third-rate shoes, but Sonny insists going with Adidas would be a mistake. Since Adi, the founder, died, the brand's been declining. Falk corrects him. They called him Adi, not Adolf. Adidas wants to distance him from his past with the National Socialist Party. In his office, Phil tells Sonny they can't spend the whole budget on one player. Sonny admits it's risky, but so was when Phil started selling shoes from the trunk of his van, and that's why they're where they are today. Sonny is willing to bet his career on Michael Jordan. Phil starts to doubt. Maybe he's right, but he's still not sure. Meanwhile, Adidas and Converse prepare to try to sign Michael. Sonny calls Falk again, but he keeps refusing a meeting, so he takes a flight to see George Raveling, assistant coach of the Olympic basketball team. Remember this name. It'll be very important. Raveling is blunt. Don't even try. Jordan hates Nike so much that he said he'd sign a lifetime contract with anyone who buys him a red Mercedes 380 SL, except Nike. Sonny asks about Michael's parents. Are they smart? George replies, and the mom is in charge. Sonny says he should talk to her. George warns him that if he does, he'll lose his job. I don't know what's wrong with me, Sonny admits. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've never felt like this. Back at Nike, Sonny runs into Howard, tells him he wants to go see Michael's parents. Howard warns him he's playing with fire, but he believes in him. The next day, Rob looks for Sonny in his office, but he's not there. He gets a call from him. He's in North Carolina. He drives to the Jordans' house. He meets James, the father, and then Dolores, Michael's mother, comes to the door. Sonny introduces himself. Upon hearing he's from Nike, Dolores gets upset, asks if they hadn't told him they weren't interested. Sonny says he doesn't like taking no for an answer and believes her son deserves to be with someone who thinks the same. She invites him into the garden. Sonny asks if Michael is home. She says yes, but he won't see him. It's not the time. First things first, Dolores clarifies. Michael wants to sign with Adidas. Converse is his second option. Sonny replies that's a mistake. He proposes a bet. He can tell her exactly how the meetings with Adidas and Converse will go. If he's wrong, no meeting with Nike. But if he's right, he wants her to at least consider it. Dolores says nothing, but agrees. Sonny starts with Converse. Everyone will wear red ties for the Chicago Bulls. John O'Neal will wear his Rolex. They'll say Michael has something special, but he asks Dolores to ask them what makes Michael stand out from the players they already have. How will he be different? Then Adidas. Their pitch will be that they have the best footwear, that they're simply the coolest, but ask them who's running the company. Sonny assures 4 people will give 4 different answers. That's the problem with Adidas, and it'll be a headache in the coming years. And what do I ask you? Dolores says, ask why I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina. She does, and he replies, because I believe in your son. I think he's different, and I think you're the only one who knows it. She thanks him and says goodbye. Back at Nike, Falk calls Sonny, furious, yells that he can't keep ignoring his instructions, and warns. If he doesn't get the whole company to go all in on Air Jordan and close a deal with the family, he's going to destroy his career and Nike. Sonny's face lights up. He likes Air Jordan. Falk adds that the Jordans have agreed to a meeting with Nike. They'll arrive in Oregon on Monday. Sonny is ecstatic, but the excitement doesn't last. Phil calls him to his office. You went to the Jordans' house, scheduled a meeting with them. He reminds him he doesn't have authorization to do that, and besides, he doesn't have the executive's green light to make Jordan an offer. Sonny replies that if they want to win, they have to spend. Phil, furious, reminds him he's the boss and he likes to do things strategically and carefully. Sonny looks at him and says, oh, yeah, that's how you built this company. Phil stays silent, because the truth is no. Nike wasn't born from a calculated plan, but from hunches like the one Sonny is having now. Nike's story starts in 1962. Phil Knight is studying an MBA at Stanford when he hears a case that catches his attention. The German camera brands Zeiss Icon and Leica, which dominated the market for years, ended up being displaced by Japanese ones like Nikon and Canon. Phil, who ran on the track team in college, thinks of another industry dominated by Germans. Athletic shoes with brands like Adidas and Puma. He wonders if the Japanese could do the same there. From that moment, he obsesses over the idea of bringing Japanese sneakers to the United States. With no business experience and no clear plan, he boards a plane to Japan. Like any tourist, he starts browsing stores until he finds one that fascinates him, Onitsuka Tiger. The sneakers are of impressive quality, exactly what he was looking for. Phil presents himself as a footwear distributor and gets a meeting with the company's founder. And to his surprise, the owner agrees. And just like that, Phil becomes Onitsuka's exclusive distributor. In the United States, his first order arrives, 12 pairs of sneakers. He sells them however he can, from the trunk of his car, going from track to track, but soon realizes he won't get far like that. So he seeks help. He thinks of the only person who knows more about shoes than him, his former track coach at the University of Oregon, Bill Bowerman. Bill tries the Tigers and is so impressed that he immediately proposes partnering up. So, Phil and Bill found Blue Ribbon Sports. Each puts in $500 and uses all the money for their first order. At $3.33 a pair, they can afford 300 pairs. The shipment arrives in April, and thanks to Bill's contacts, it's sold out by July. In their first year, BRS sells $8,000 in shoes. With those profits, Phil starts hiring salespeople, and the next year sales rise to $20,000, and soon after they open their first store in Santa Monica. Every time a new shipment of sneakers arrives, Phil opens some pairs to inspect them, analyzes every detail, and thinks about how to improve them. More cushioning, lighter materials, any change that can make them more comfortable and faster. He sends his suggestions to Japan over and over until basically he's the one designing Onitsuka's models. In 1968, taking advantage of the Mexico Olympics, Bill creates the Cortez model. It's an absolute success. Everyone wants one. This takes Blue Ribbon Sports to the mass public, and the next year they sell $300,000 in sneakers. But just when they're at their best, a big problem arises. Onitsuka can't produce at the rate they sell. Demand grows, but the factory can't keep up. Phil and Bill know that if they want to keep growing, they can't stay as mere distributors. They decide that as soon as the Onitsuka contract ends, they'll launch their own brand. To not depend on a single supplier, they set up a network of factories in Japan. That way, they control production and can grow without restrictions. An employee suggests the name Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. Then Phil looks for a logo, goes to a university, finds a graphic design student, pays her $35, and gets the famous swoosh. They launch the brand, and Nike takes off not just in the United States, but in several countries, though always within a very defined niche: runners. Nike was the running brand. All their campaigns, products, and sponsorships revolved around that world. For a while, that's more than enough, but there comes a point when they need to enter other sports like basketball. The problem is Nike has an image very tied to track and field, clean and technical, and that doesn't fit with basketball's cooler, streetier aesthetic. By 1984, where the movie starts, Converse dominates with 54% of the market. Adidas has 29%, and Nike barely 17%. But as we'll see, everything is about to change. Phil tells him he'll think about it, orders him to prepare the presentation for the Jordans, though he warns, if he changes his mind on Sunday, it's canceled. Sonny admits that if they don't get the deal, he doesn't know what his place in the company will be. Phil agrees. Determined, Sonny stays working all weekend on the presentation. He goes to the sneaker designer and explains what he needs: a unique shoe. Converse are simple, common, all players wear the same model, but he wants to do something different. Instead of giving the athlete a brand sneakers, he wants to create a sneaker around the athlete. For the shoe to be a physical manifestation of the person, not the person a mere emblem of the company. Peter asks, who is the shoe for? Sonny, excited, replies, Michael Jordan. Meanwhile, the Jordans meet with Converse. They show them a generic video about the brand. But the most important thing is the meeting happens just as Sonny described to Dolores: red ties and Rolexes on display. She comments it's very impressive. They have the three best players in the league: Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Julius Erving. But that means for them, Michael will always be number 4. The executives laugh. She's talking about Magic and Bird. Of course they have to give them preferential treatment. But Michael, they say, will have the honor of being mentioned in the same sentence as them. There's nothing better than that. At Nike, Sonny, Rob, and Peter work on the shoe design. Sonny says it's too simple, lacks color. Peter replies that by NBA rules, the shoe must be 51% white. If it doesn't comply, the fine is $5,000 per game. Then Rob proposes, what if we make it even redder, much redder, and pay the fines? It would be free publicity. Peter loves it, and a name comes to mind: Air Jordan. It's perfect. Except Sonny remembers that Falk, Michael's agent, had already said that name. But they agree to say it was Peter's idea. Rob talks to Sonny. He reminds him that if they fail, they'll close the department and he'll lose his job. He reproaches him for not thinking about the risks and dragging everyone along. Sonny replies you have to risk to win, but Rob reminds him he has a family depending on him. Still, he admits he understands his vision. Sonny feels bad and says in the end, all this is just for a shoe. Rob corrects him. A shoe is just a shoe until someone steps into it. At that moment, Peter arrives. The shoe is ready. The three look at it in awe. It's beautiful. In Germany, the Jordans meet with Adidas. Unlike Converse, there he would be their star, but when seeing the shoes, Dolores thinks they're too plain. She asks if they have other styles for Michael. They say yes, but without much conviction. Then she asks the question Sonny told her. Who makes the decisions? One replies that since Adi's death, it's been Horst Dassler. Dolores nods, but another executive intervenes and says it's a team effort. Horst scolds him in German while he insists everyone decides, just as Sonny predicted. On Sunday, Phil arrives in his purple Porsche at Nike's offices, finds Sonny asleep on a couch. He gives him the green light to make Michael an offer with the full budget, $250,000. The team meets to prepare the presentation, and finally the moment arrives. Michael and his family arrive at Nike's offices. Dolores tells Sonny that Michael doesn't want to be there, but he promised he'd listen. They get to the boardroom. Rob tries to break the ice with the Jordans, but only makes them uncomfortable. Fortunately, Howard arrives. In seconds, he connects with Michael's father, and the tension eases a bit. Rob finally reveals the Air Jordan prototype. Michael looks at it closely. His father comments it's very colorful, that the NBA has rules about that. Sonny replies they know, but they'll pay the fines. Rob projects the video they prepared, but Michael isn't paying attention. He's bored. The energy in the room plummets. They're failing. Sonny senses it instantly, decides to speak from the heart, from the same intuition that took him to North Carolina. He tells Michael to forget the shoe, forget the money. He's going to earn so much that it'll be irrelevant. But there's something you can't buy, immortality. And that has to be earned. He knows his story, how he was cut from the team in high school, how he made it to the NBA through sheer willpower, and how he'll win championships that will inspire the whole world. He's sure he'll win them, and that people will admire him and elevate him to an almost mythical level. But fame always follows the same pattern. After he reaches the top, they'll destroy him, criticize him, humiliate him, and betray him. And in those moments, when the world turns its back, it'll be his ability to get up that makes him eternal. Not the points he scores, not the trophies, but how he faces defeats, losses, and criticisms. That's where true legacy is forged. That's the Michael Jordan Nike wants to represent. Not just the one who wins, but the one who never gives up. He clarifies he's not naive. He knows Michael doesn't need them to give meaning to his life, but they do need Michael to give meaning to theirs. In the end, what everyone wants is to touch greatness. Michael's story will inspire them to fly, and that shoe will be the way they feel they can do it too, because a shoe is just a shoe until someone steps into it. Sonny's speech moves everyone. The Jordan family thanks them and leaves. The team is excited. They feel they've won. All that's left is to wait for the call. Days pass and nothing, until Howard calls Sonny with bad news. Adidas matched the offer. Here we'll pause. We'll keep the suspense a bit to see what of all this actually happened in real life, and how much is the movie's invention. To start, yes, it's true Michael Jordan wanted nothing to do with Nike. In an interview, he confessed that before signing with them, he'd never worn a pair. On the court, he played in Converse. Off it, he wore Adidas. He'd emphatically told his agent he didn't want to hear anything about Nike. About Sonny Vaccaro, the movie portrays him as the absolute responsible for the deal, the one who had the idea, who ignored the critics, who personally went to visit Michael's family, and who in the end gives a speech that could tip the scales. However, Phil Knight sees it differently, very differently. Once he said, "The signing of Michael Jordan, you know, success has 1,000 fathers and failure is an orphan. A lot of people want the credit, especially Sonny Vaccaro. Sonny helped, but he wasn't the MVP of that process." Michael Jordan himself has said it too. Sonny likes to take the credit, but it really wasn't him. According to Michael, yes, Sonny was the one who proposed making him an offer, but he wasn't interested. Then, Sonny turned to George Raveling, the Olympic team coach we saw at the beginning of the movie, to help convince him. And since Michael trusted George a lot, he agreed to meet with Nike. Once there, it wasn't Sonny who impressed him the most, but Rob Strasser and Peter. Nonetheless, Sonny has fought this version of events, and I quote, "Phil Knight lies, Michael lies more than Phil, and Raveling is crazy. The three need to destroy me to live happily." And here's something curious. In 1991, Nike fired Sonny for reasons that were never made public. Soon after, he went to work at Adidas, where Strasser and Peter already were. Practically the whole original team ended up outside Nike. So who's telling the truth? Maybe the opinion of Peter Moore, the Air Jordan designer, someone not fighting for credit, can help. Moore has said, "The truth is very close to Sonny. This is very typical of Nike. Each person tells you a different version." And he adds, "Phil Knight is half right." Strasser was key in the deal. He decided Nike needed a basketball icon. He realized we weren't achieving anything in that sport and sought out Sonny, who recommended the kid from North Carolina. Sonny was the first to talk to Michael and explained how important it would be for a company like Nike. In the first meeting with Michael and his family, it was Sonny and Rob who won them over. I say it honestly, without Sonny, there would be no Air Jordan. Nike never would have signed him and probably wouldn't have even tried. They probably would have gone with Patrick Ewing from Georgetown. What do you think of all this? Whose version of the story do you believe? Sonny loses faith. He took the biggest risk of his career and lost. Suddenly the phone rings. It's Dolores. He's sure she'll say they went with Adidas, but no. She announces they're willing to accept Nike's $250,000. Sonny celebrates. He can't believe it, but she stops him. That's not all. Michael will get a share of the sales. Sonny replies that's impossible. That's not how the business works. But Dolores insists. If Michael does what she believes he will, what Sonny believes he will, and what Michael himself knows he will, then it won't be Nike or the NBA promoting her son, but him promoting them. And in that case, he deserves a percentage. You eat, we eat. That's all I ask. She knows the business doesn't work that way, that it's not made to be fair, but every once in a while, someone so extraordinary appears that they force the rules to change because they know their worth. Sonny replies, or his mother knows it. Dolores asks, "You tell me, am I the one who believes in Michael, or am I just a healthy reflection of who he is and what he believes about himself?" She repeats her conditions. $250,000, a Mercedes-Benz, and a percentage of sales from all present and future Air Jordans. A shoe is a shoe until my son wears it. Downcast, Sonny goes to Phil and tells him the conditions. To his surprise, Phil replies, "If you're right about this, kid, it'll be the best thing to happen to the company. It'll be worth every penny. Let's do it." Sonny doesn't waste a second and calls Dolores. "We accept all your terms." She sighs, thanks him, and now passes the phone to Michael. "Welcome to Nike," Sonny tells him. Minutes later, Sonny enters the basketball department and shouts, "We have Michael Jordan." Everyone jumps for joy. They did it. Sonny did it. After multiple negotiations, in 1985, the Air Jordan 1 comes out. Nike expected to sell $3 million, but as soon as Michael steps on the NBA courts, it's clear he's something never seen before. Stadiums that were half empty before start filling to bursting. Michael becomes a national phenomenon, and sales skyrocket. In less than a year, they exceed $160 million. Since then, Nike hasn't stopped releasing new models. Air Jordan stopped being just a shoe line to become an independent brand within the company. Today it's a giant. Just in 2023, Jordan brand made $6.6 billion, around 13% of all Nike's sales. With Michael taking 5% of those sales, we're talking $330 million in 1 year. The Nike Jordan deal was historic, not just for the sales, but because it marked a before and after in how business is done. Before, the athlete got a fixed payment, put their face out there, and even if their name or image drove millions in sales, they didn't share proportionally in those profits. Thanks to Dolores's insistence, a scheme was created where profits are aligned. If the brand wins, the athlete wins. As she said, "You eat, we eat." And boy did it work, it was beneficial for everyone. And though this story happened in a world of famous figures and million-dollar contracts, the lesson applies to anyone, because in the end, we've all experienced something similar. Being asked to stay extra hours without pay, given higher position responsibilities without the matching salary. Situations where you provide real value but don't get proportional compensation. The system isn't fair and won't change on its own. Of course, it's not always as simple as raising your hand. There are rules, hierarchies, and bosses who might not want to listen, but I think it's worth trying. Recognize your value, put it on the table, and open the conversation so your effort is fairly compensated. That said, just like in Michael's case, it's not about asking for the sake of it, but having something real to offer. It's not enough to believe you're worth a lot. You have to prove it. And when you do, then you can negotiate what you deserve. Michael Jordan ended up becoming the greatest basketball player of all time, and thanks to his mother knowing how to negotiate fairly, he ensured he was rewarded as the key piece he was to Nike's success. Thanks a lot for making it to the end of this video. Remember, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, you can do it right now, and it'd help me a ton. And you and I will see each other in the next one.